Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I am Mark Hoffmeyer.
And I am Jay. Actually, I'm going to call an audible on that, Mark. I think our nickname should be How We Drive, or what we're like in a car. That's what it is today. So I'm Jay the Napper. So I shouldn't be allowed to drive because I just fall asleep. Welcoming you to Deep Blue Sea, the
you
podcast.
Just fall asleep in cars?
I do. Even when driving, that's why I don't drive. I can. It's my superpower. I can fall asleep anywhere. I've fallen asleep.
I'm Mark Center Lane Hoffmeyer. Not slow, not fast, steady.
I've fallen asleep in an active MRI machine and whilst having a haircut before. So
wait, at the same, are they offering both now?
Yeah, it was a 2-in-1 deal. Yeah, it was a interesting afternoon. Anyway, this is Deep Blue Sea, the podcast.
Were they metal clippers?
Yes, it was. Well, they can't have metal clippers. That would have messed up the machine. It was all plastic. It wasn't a good haircut.
What's happening?
I don't know. We're off track. I haven't even got to what the podcast is. It's Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. On this show, Mark and I have dived our way through the Deep Blue Sea trilogy, scene by scene. By looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films, that is, films featuring sharks, aquatic action, or directed by Renny Harlin, therefore leading to a very much not Deep Blue Sea adjacent film, as is the case today with Driven. What is Driven? Well, it is a 2001 American action sport film directed by Renny Harlin, written by Sylvester Stallone, or based on a screenplay by Stallone, starring Stallone, Burt Reynolds, Kip Pardue, Til Schweiger, Gina Gershon, Estella Warren, Christian de la Fuente. There's a plane going overhead right now. I don't know if you can hear that. And Stacey Edwards.
Is it Con Air?
No, we've landed that plane.
Is Gerard Butler on the plane with Mike Coulter?
The jailbird has landed and been destroyed in Vegas. That's been and gone.
Is Luke Evans falling out of the back of it?
Well, this is all very appropriate for our guests today because this is a 2001 car movie. So it makes sense that we should have on some people who are familiar with a different 2001 car movie and its numerous sequels. So joining us from the Too Fast, Too Forever podcast, it's the two gentlemen of Corona. It's Joe 2 and Joey Lewandowski. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, guys. I cannot believe that this movie came out the same year as The Fast and the Furious. It feels both older and new. It's out of time in a way that like The Fast and the Furious feels so 2001. This feels like, I don't know what it feels like, but it does not feel like 2001.
Listen, it's a Renny Harlin special. That's for sure. You know what? Listen, watching this movie again, it made me really happy. And it made me love Renny Harlin more. Because I think this is probably like a 2-star movie. But for Franchise Pictures, I would say it's a 4-star Franchise Pictures film.
Yeah,
you guys know about Franchise Pictures, right?
Franchise Pictures. I forgot to say.
Yeah. So like, this is the company that, they released Battlefield Earth. They released Sound of Thunder. They released Get Carter. The Art of War, Ballistic, X vs. Sever. Basically, what it was like a company that started by Eli Samaha and he just fleeced the heck out of a German company and made a ton of money. Then he got sued for $100 million, and then his company went defunct. But yeah, so basically, what happened was, I'm jumping all over the place because I love this so much, guys. Basically, what happens was, they said Battlefield Earth had like a $90 million budget. This is a lot of explaining, but I'm going to do it. Here we go.
It's worth it. If it's what you sent me, that link, it's worth explaining.
Okay, so Eli Samaha, what he would do was he started Franchise Pictures, and he would find scripts that were in turnaround, which means like they were ready to go, they didn't go, so now they're sitting at a studio, just waiting to be made, and he could buy them for cheap. It was cheaper than getting a new screenplay written. It was cheaper than that. Then he would find A-list stars. Like Battlefield Earth, nobody would make Battlefield Earth. Like, get away from me, John Travolta. Like, you're the hottest star on the planet. We won't even make this movie. So this guy, Eli Samaha, who made his name, like, working VIP lounge at the Roxbury, like, he knew all these celebrities. So somehow he got involved with this German entertainment company that was going to put up 47% of all of the film's budgets that he worked with. So he like went up to Sly Stallone. He's like, Sly, you've been wanting to make Get Carter and this racing movie for years, and no one will do it. So you can come make it for me. I'll give you $20 million for each, and we will go make your movies. But the problem was, like, he's like, but then once they sign on, he would ship them to Canada. He would lower the budget, and then he would also have the catering company that fed everybody on the staff, but he would overcharge for his catering company.
Oh.
So whenever you see like Battlefield Earth has an $88 million budget, it's more like a $30 million budget. The VFX supervisor on Battlefield Earth said it was the cheapest thing has ever worked on. Like he would ship them to Canada, And like he would do something too. Like since they were paying 47% of the budget, he was like, yeah, like Battlefield Earth has a $90 million budget. So then they would pay 45 to 50 million. But in actuality, it was like a $50 million budget. So then like they ended up footing the bill for almost the entire movie. And then he would pocket a ton of cash and then just like ship them off to Canada to go make movies. So when you see Driven having a budget of 90 million to 70 million, it's probably closer to 50 million. And then Stallone got 20 million of that, which left Renny Harlin about 30 to 35 million to make this movie. And this was originally like a 3-hour long film.
Insane. With
a 220-page script. Like nobody would touch this. People were like, Stallone, you just made Assassins and Dread. Like we're not making a 220-page script into a movie for you. But this Eli Samaha was like, yeah, we'll do it. And I'll just fleece about $20 million out of it and put it in my own pocket.
It genuinely, that answers so many questions.
A ton of questions, yeah.
Yeah. And so, so that's why this movie's chopped up. It was originally supposed to be like more of like a movie about the male ego. So if you see this movie, you have Til Schweiger's character, who is...
Believe me, Mark, that's still in there.
Yeah. But I love, like, Til Schweiger's the driven guy. You know, he's driven. He runs, he trains. Stallone's the guy who wrecked it all. Then you have Jimmy Bly as like the young kid who looks at computers and is pushed. Yep. And then you have Memo as like the guy who was also pushed, like he lost his spot. And then you have Burt Reynolds. And then the woman's there writing about like masculinity in sports. It was supposed to be like this takedown of masculinity and like learning to be humble and learning how to like, you know, just live life and enjoy and like put away the male masculine ego. But they got chopped all to hell. And then it's 2 hours of Driven. But it still looks like they invented like a Fraser camera before Top Gun to like get the driving scenes in this. They made a NASCAR that could go 200 miles an hour with cameras on it to capture the speed of these carts as they're driving around the tracks. Like Harlan went all around the world. It's like, I feel like it looks authentic. I like the racing scenes. I have fun with it, but it's about 8 different movies in one. And then with 50 minutes cut out. And then so like it never totally works, but I still love what Renny was able to do.
There's stuff in here that looks amazing and stuff in here that looks worse than most movies I've ever seen in my life. Like in the same scene, not from scene to scene, but like in the same thing, like the rain race is like maybe cooler than any race in any Fast and Furious movie until the CGI comes in and just like, oh no, what are you doing?
There's some original Jumanji level CGI in this film.
There is.
And of like basic things like manhole covers and coins that should be fairly straightforward.
Yes.
It looked terrible.
Here's the thing though, if you watch Sound of Thunder, if you watch Art of War, Ballistics X for Sever, Battlefield Earth, all the franchise pictures movies have horrifying VFX in the films because they didn't have a budget for good VFX. So basically what they did was they just chucked a few dollars at some people and they're like, hey, make this work. So like the VFX were always last and they're always bad for franchise pictures films. But yeah, you have cool practical racing footage, and then you have just like soul-numbing VFX in this movie. So it's like it's up and down for me. Like I still like you know, there's no jerks in this film, guys. Like there's a couple jerks, but there's no mustache twirling villain.
No,
like there's no like at the end of it, everyone's like, yeah, we're cool. Like, hey man, my bad. Like Jimmy Bly goes up to Til Schweiger, hey man, my bad. And then Memo later's like, hey, my bad.
They're all happy at the end.
Yeah,
even though they've been sharing 2 girlfriends, the whole movie, and everybody's happy about it.
I don't like this take. I feel like there's not enough bad guys. It's not good that there's no bad guys. It's bad that they have some bad guys that they make okay at the end. Like there are at least there are 4 villains in this film. You have
wait, who are they?
Til Schweiger,
all the main characters. Yeah,
okay.
At some point.
Til Schweiger as Bo Brandenburg, Burt Reynolds, Carl Henry, Robert Sean Leonard as DeMille Bly, a real name, and Gina Gershon, Stallone's ex-wife, are all villains who are all nice at the end. And I wanted... okay. Mark's just...
Jay, that's called character development.
Right. Mark's given a whole monologue before we've probably let our guests say anything on this show. Which you guys will get to talk for a minute, but I do not share Mark's love for this film. This feels like a film that was made in a lab for me to just not care about it at all.
I picture Jay just being furious while watching this movie.
I hate cars. I especially hate cars when they're involved in sport. I'm not a sport fan. I've never really understood sport, and I've never understood the driving sports above anything else. I have My dad loves Formula One. We'd have like loads of barbecues over the summer where he'd keep nipping back inside to check the TV to see what the score was or who was in the lead. And I don't understand. It's the most boring sport. It's more boring than watching golf. And then you throw on top of that not just one love triangle, but two love triangles. Things I do not care for. And then you have no sharks, no dinosaurs, no plane crashes. No one dies in this film.
There's lots of crashes.
There's a blue race car though, and that's pretty blue.
There is a blue. We'll get how blue the film is later, Joey. But this isn't a film. This is a film that I was thoroughly bored by. But that's not Renny Harlin's fault. That's not the filmmaker. No. That's not the fault of anyone involved in the making of the film. That is just the subject matter on display. I don't like anything about this film. In terms of the subject matter. No, I'm not saying it's a badly made film. It's just a film about things I don't want to watch. Which is not the film's fault. It's not Renny Harlin's fault. This is entirely my fault. This is my problem. So I'm gonna try not to have that opinion going on, but just know that of all the Renny Harlin films we covered so far, this is my least favourite, purely based on the subject matter. End of that opinion.
Oh wow.
So I love this movie.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Joe too.
Very happy for you, Joe too. What is it about Driven that you loved?
It was at times somehow trying to be a very serious sporting movie that would then interject a Sly Stallone monologue that he would deliver pretty badly and tonally change what the scene was doing. And at the same time, it was also very much a soap opera and a Lifetime style movie. And then it had a bunch of things that I do love, like car racing and bad CG and really cheesy love triangles. So as much as this wasn't made for you, Jay, I think this movie was made for me.
I messaged Joe 5 minutes. I watched this movie last night. He watched it today. And I messaged him last night. I'm like, look, I'm 5 minutes in. I have a headache, and I already know you're going to love this movie. Those things are not related.
Yes.
But those two things are true. And I was right.
Yeah, I think you absolutely were.
Do you like it, Joey?
No, I don't like it. I don't... Look, I like parts about it. I don't think it's a movie. I don't think that a lot of the, cool stuff works, but I think there are elements of it that I think work really well. I think the racing is pretty good. Well, I have a handful of notes that we can get to, but overall, if I like it or don't, I don't. But there are parts about it that I like. The one thing I will say that I don't like is that it feels like Gina Gershon forgot how to act.
Oh no!
And I don't know. Best character. I love her in so many things.
Which one is she?
And then
is she the older girlfriend getting passed around, or the
brunette
younger?
lady?
Yeah. Okay.
Brunette lady.
Ex-wife. Yeah.
She's so good in Bound. She's so good in so many things. And here it's just I don't understand what's going on. There's I get the masculine machismo, whatever, but I don't know. It feels, Joe, we were talking about Oppenheimer today. It feels Oppenheimer-esque in these women are only there to be with dudes.
Literally further to be a trophy or a part that's a bonus for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
He says that specifically says that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess it in the longer ones, she had more, in the longer thing, she had more to do, where basically they were a couple together and they were just absolutely wrong for each other. And so he walked away from it and he never gave her a chance to vet her anger at him. So he just stepped away. He's like, we're not good for each other. And he left her completely. So then she got with Memo after that.
Makes sense.
And has never been able to just yell at the dude. So it's been years later and she sees him and she's like, I just hate this guy. And then she goes full on angry Gershon. But none of that comes across in the actual edit
anything
that we watch. That's the 2 hour film. But yeah, Stallone over the 50 minutes of deleted scenes that he's taught, he does a commentary over it. He's like, yeah, she had a lot more to do. And, we didn't need it. And so we cut it. But, he said this is a movie that he wishes he didn't make. And he also wishes that he didn't make Get Carter. But the reason is no one would make this movie. So Elie Samaha was like, yeah, we'll go make a 220-page film in Toronto and lower the budget and give you 20 million. And I think once they got shooting, he and Harlan were like, well, I guess we'll film this, but we can't use all this. So they basically had to Frankenstein the movie in the edit.
Man,
Like, this movie shouldn't have been made.
I wish so. Like the thing that the issue that I have with Zack Snyder movies, which it's going to come around, but like I think he makes a terrible 2-hour movie. I think Zack Snyder makes an incredible 4-hour movie. Like I don't like this movie, but if they shot the entire 220-page version of this, I want to see that movie. Like I might not like it, but I want to see the complete thing. The 4-hour version of this might be good. It's probably not, but it could be.
Well, it shouldn't have been made. It was just,
I'm still trying to get
this guy was like, listen, I need Stallone. Stallone gets me international numbers. He opens me up in other markets. I can talk to this German company that's funding most of my movies for it.
Scamming
I can
anyways,
inflate the budget. Yeah. And like Stallone wanted to make this for 4 years. And then this guy's like, hey, man, I'll give you $20 million just to pay you. Then you can go make it. So Stallone, I think, like Harlan had a racing movie fall through about Senna. They couldn't even get F1's approval. So that's why they use kart racing in this movie.
Is it kart racing or like it like looks like Indy?
It's kart racing,
but it's like
open car kart racing. And like they couldn't even get F1.
Yeah.
So they went to kart. And like I just think if you're going to go into battle with a 220-page script and your leading star hasn't really had a hit in many years, like, you're going to be in some trouble. That's why I kind of like what Harlan pulled off, because as I watch all the other franchise films, like 3,000 Miles to Graceland is a hot pile of hurt. And that movie, like they shipped them off to Canada, cut half the budget, and you watch it and you're like, this is a bad movie. And like, for me, at least, Harlan's skill as a director I don't know, I feel like he just gets it done. So watching the races, like when they go to Japan, I sort of felt that this was quite international. Like I like the scope of the shots he's able to get. I like the on-car racing, but that's about it. Like I don't, I think Jimmy Bly just looks at computers the whole time.
Yeah.
But knowing what I know about franchise pictures, that's why I like this movie. That's why I find it endearing, because I think Harlan got something out of it. But it's a 2-star movie, but it's a 5-star franchise picture.
Oh, went from 4 to 5 stars. You talked yourself up.
Yeah, I went Ebert to Letterboxd. So Ebert would give it.
Oh,
yeah.
So you're saying like this is like a perfect franchise pictures?
Yeah, because it's not horrible. Like it doesn't look terrible. Like you watch Ballistics X-47 and your eyes fall out. Like you watch Battlefield Earth, and they had no idea what they were doing. Like they just put aliens on stilts. Like they just and they Dutch angled it a lot. So at least on this one, Harlan made some thrilling shots of racing. Like people talk a lot about Top Gun and the way they filmed the cockpit stuff. Like I think Harlan should get some credit for helping use a brand new camera lens that could get the guys in the cockpit driving. Like I think some shots are pretty great in this movie. So that's just
Lake of Fire is very cool looking.
The giant explosion that Memo goes up in.
Yeah.
Now I would assume Joe watched the movie the same way that I did, in like, is this a Fast and Furious movie? What connections can they make? And the one thing that the thing that jumps out to me the most, well, two things. Number one, Sly's garage very early on gives very big vibes of 1327's garage, like just that old kind of like outdoorsy, old-timey kind of
100%
suburbs garage.
It felt like he could be Buddy from F9, right?
The other thing that I thought was funny was that like Tokyo Drift, when Sean races past those cops and he's like, oh my God, they're going to pull me over. And Han's like, no, if they're doing over 180K, they don't pull you over. But here we see a Chicago cop, again, in the United States, with a radar gun, show them doing 195, but like that's miles per hour, not kilometers per hour, which is like way, way faster. And I was just thinking like, it's funny that we're so used to like, oh, over 180K, like they don't chase you. But like here, it's like 195 miles an hour. It's like, what do you even do? Like you can't even
just watch.
You're done. You're done.
But
I was 310 kilometers. That's huge.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I was laughing at this whole like driving around Chicago scene, because I was like, they're gonna get out of this, and you absolutely would go immediately to jail. Like the meme, like straight to jail. Like that's exactly what would have happened. And he's like, and $25,000 fine. Like you guys are good.
Almost non-existent fine, just like slap on the wrist.
Given that all that happens during that chase, like it's cool them going under the trucks and lorries. That's cool. But the property destruction, the manhole covers that are floating around, the women who are exposed,
the other cars that get hit, like
right,
just cause accidents. And you're
I listened to Renny Harlin's commentary on this at Mark's request, and when that lady's dress blows up, his remark is, "It's one of my little moments. What can I say?" Was Renny Harlin's commentary on that.
I also the other big very quick fast connection here is that BT did the score for this one and also for the first Fast and so they sound the same.
It makes sense.
It sounds like
I didn't know that,
first
Joey.
the Fast and Furious.
I didn't know that, Joey, till you just said it, but it makes so much sense now that you bring it up. Yep.
There are parts where just like, oh, this might have just been like an outtake from the Fast and Furious.
The B-sides, right? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're at the same time, too. It's the exact same year, so he's definitely making them both essentially at the same time.
Yeah, they shot that in Toronto over 9 nights, and Renny Harlin was like, yeah, the residents must have hated us by the time we were out of there with these cars driving around. But you know what's cool? They like took the engine, they put a V8 in this. What is it, like a 500 horsepower V8? And those cars could still go 200 miles an hour on that course. And also in the longer cuts, Stallone's character goes to jail. And then Bly gets off scot-free and then he learns that he's just expendable to these people. Like he's the fall guy. So like Jimmy, like the golden boy gets off and Stallone goes to jail. But once again, they had to cut it all, which is why you don't go into shooting a 220-page sports movie with 4 different stories. And it was all misguided.
It didn't inspire him to make it expendable.
Did you guys read? Did you read Ebert's review for this?
Oh, no, please.
Mm-mm.
No, so he gave it 2.5 stars, but he like I kind of there's a thing I like to call horny Ebert, where occasionally he just dotes on a woman like unbelievably, like Nev Campbell, and like sometimes he goes on, but this one he goes, the gorgeous Canadian supermodel Estella Warren plays Sophia, who is dumped by the champ, dates the rookie, and is taken back by the champ. She has lips that could cushion a nasty fall and swimmer shoulders that look great, except in that off-the-shoulder dress that makes them look wider than Stallone's.
He definitely mentally drifted for a while. That is very
I like
horny.
that he's like negging this Canadian supermodel. Like, you know, she's pretty hot unless she wears that one dress, in which case he's it's just like, come on, man.
Yeah. And you know, she was a synchronized swimmer. She was in the Olympics, Estella Warren. That's why they have the synchronized swimming scene with her in it. And Harlan's like, well, if you have a synchronized swimmer, you have her do synchronized swimming.
That makes sense. I thought that it was just like a little nod to Tarantino or something, because there was a whole lot of foot in that scene. Yeah.
So he watched this and saw Til Schweiger. And I thought, oh, you're going to be in my next film. I'm going to put you in Inglourious Bastards.
Oh.
It must have happened.
The one thing I remember from 01 is I remember my brother went and watched this movie, and I was like, hey, man, did you like it? He's like, I don't know. He's like, there's this cool German guy in there. I kind of like him. Like, that was his whole comment about it. My brother. His whole review was that there's a cool German guy in it.
This guy was the...
Yeah, and that was Til Schweiger.
Oh.
Yeah. I like Til Schweiger in this movie. But yeah, that was his whole review. I'm like, oh, okay. Got the Tilly Schweig in there.
I was convinced that he wasn't really German. Like, I thought that was a fake accent for a while. I was like, oh, yeah, this it feels appropriate that it feels like a fake accent, so I like that even better. So if he is German, good on him.
Joe, you know who he is? Like in Bastards? Like, he's Hugo Stieglitz. Like, he's like a big part of Inglourious Bastards.
He's the German guy in that film.
Yeah, he's like the German.
I didn't make this connection. No, everybody looked very familiar to me. Like, Bly looked really familiar, but I don't know why. Like, what I remember him from. Like, the only person I could definitely pick out was Sly Stallone, but like even the supermodel that you guys were just mentioning, like, she looks like somebody that I've seen in something else. So it's hard to balance in these like movies where we talk, Joey and I talk about this a lot, where it's like they just like got a guy that looked like another guy type situation.
Well, Estella Warren, you might remember her from Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
Okay, yeah,
that's
that
the only other thing that I know her from.
Well, her Fast and Furious connections, Jay, she did drive her Prius into several cars in 2011 and then got arrested. So yeah, so she had some Fast and Furious driving moments as well in her Prius.
Boy,
how about that explosion?
Which
one?
I also love because there's Renny like Harlin. 5.
So when Memo goes up in flames
the lake
and he explodes over the track, he erupts an Oppenheimer-esque fireball before he falls into the lake, and it just puts the biggest. I was up at 5 a.m. doing a rewatch of this movie, and I just had the biggest smile on my face as the biggest fireball ever on a kart track erupts, and just poor Memo gets shot into the water.
But he goes through the woods and into a lake. I was like, where is this track at that you have this much access to? Like, that there's not like barriers and like crowd or something. Yeah, it's like a trek. He's like 50, 100 feet away. I'm like, how the hell did you get here?
You could be canoeing.
Yeah,
like having a nice afternoon, and a cart car lands on
Pretty
you.
much. It looks like a summer camp lake. You're 100% right.
So Jay, were there any moments you enjoyed in this movie?
I mean, I did like the crash. I did kind of like that chase through Chicago in air quotes. But I just the whole time I was thinking these guys are assholes. They're just causing so much damage and destruction. I hate them. Uh, I mean, you've said bad things about it, but every moment Gina Gershon's on screen, she lights it. She lights it up. She's the closest that we have to a mustache twirling villain. She sways in at full intensity. As just you know exactly what she is, the most stereotypical ex-wife character you can imagine.
That's
What I
true.
love
And
about
I loved every second.
What I
of it.
love about this is imagining me and Jay watching this together, and as soon as she comes on screen, I check out and he checks in, and then like the rest of the time, I'm just like, what else could there be? Like I'm optimistically watching for things that I like, and I'm not finding stuff, but like she comes on, I'm just like, come on, and Jay's like, okay, here we go.
I stand up and start cheering, start applauding the screen.
I think you'll like this quote, Jay, from Ebert. He's like, I mentioned that all the characters are nice, except for Gershon, who sticks to bitchiness and a stubborn show of integrity. You're like,
Absolutely, she knows what she's doing, and she does it incredibly well.
that's such a line, though. Bitchiness. It's I love franchise pictures, y'all. You don't understand the fun. Like Battlefield Earth, I wrote about it for Rotten Tomatoes, and the Museum of Pop Culture in the United States invited me to like moderate one of their panels that was watching this, because I just love the research on Battlefield Earth so much. This guy Eli Samaha, just like, so I just found this other thing where he was doing City by the Sea, and he said all the actors cost 18 million, but they actually cost 14. He said all the sets cost 2 million, they actually cost 1. So this dude is just making money. Like he was a bouncer at the Roxbury. He was a dry cleaner. And one day Joey Pants walked in there, and somehow he wrecked Joey Pants' clothes. And then somehow Joey Pants walked out of there like having a part in one of his B movies before he started Franchise Pictures. Like the dude's a salesman. Yeah, and like he's a schmoozer, and he used to party with Stallone at the Roxbury. And then he just,
why don't we have a movie about this guy?
Yeah, right. And then after he got out of this, he bought Grauman's Theater. Like he keeps getting in trouble, and he got successfully. So he was in court for 2 weeks, and he told all the jurors that if they found him innocent, they would have VIP passes for life at any of his clubs.
That's
in the middle of the
legal.
thing. No, and so
Yeah, a little bit.
after the trial, when they had to deliberate, they were gone for 1 hour, and they came back and found him guilty. So it's like,
Oh, so it was like the reverse OJ.
yeah, like he said, I will give you VIP passes to all my clubs. 1 hour, like when they went to deliberate, 1 hour later, you're guilty.
It
So, like,
does.
everybody.
It does feel like, to Joe's point, it feels insane that we have like Electric Boogaloo, the untold story of Cannon films, but we don't have one, as far as I know, about this. Like we don't need we don't need a We Crashed or like a fictionalized retelling of the story, but just like give us a documentary about this, because I mean the story is there.
I had no concept of any of this before Mark starts like dropping it on us, so I'm along for this ride for sure.
Like I love that he owned a catering company and would overcharge for. So get this, on Battlefield Earth, the food was so bad, but he was charging so much money that Travolta dipped into his own pocket and paid for crew for the entire staff. Like Travolta, he got 16 million for Battlefield Earth, and he started paying for food for the entire crew.
It was Fire Festival
For the
levels
movie.
bad.
Yeah, because he's like, this is terrible. So it's just, I don't know. I love it. Like these movies lost so much money.
And nobody like storms off either. You know what I mean? Like you get Travolta to be like, okay, I'll just pay for the food then. And like you're still getting paid more than you want for your food from your catering company. So you're like, yeah, okay.
Oh man, and just, you know, none of these movies made money. A lot of them failed. They were all critically bad. But Universal was like, hey, keep sending them to us, because we'll just dump them in August. We'll dump them in March. We'll put them out in January. Like this, because Universal spent no money on them. They just distributed them. So like they're like, yeah, sure, Ellie, just give us some crap movies that we'll put in the theaters in January.
Did the German company ever freak out about this? Like they eventually have to get wise, but you've given me 10 examples of him doing this, so.
Yeah, 2001, they immediately sued him because they looked at the budget for Get Carter and they're like, this is not a $65 million movie. And then they did the math and it was like in the 30s. But Ellie pocketed all that money.
Was to that earlier point, Mark, I was watching this movie last night, like, did this go to theaters? And I was like, oh no, in 2001, there wasn't really another option. Like there was, home video and whatever, but like most movies that came out then went to theaters. I'm just like, it seems insane.
This wasn't on Lifetime.
Right, like I can see you cutting together a trailer for this that like looks pretty cool. And it's like, oh, like there's Sylvester Stallone in a race car movie? Like hell yeah, I'll go. And you go see the movie, you're like, what is this?
And that's what I said. I was like, what is happening here? But yeah, the more I learn about franchise, the more I love it.
I'm going to ask a really dumb question, but I think I know the answer to it. I'm going to assume that no picture from Franchise Pictures ever actually became a franchise.
Ooh.
Well, Whole 9 Yards, Whole 10 Yards.
Yeah, so Whole 10 Yards is like one of the biggest flops of all time. But that's how Ellie made it big, was because of Whole 9 Yards.
Okay.
Which was written by Bruce Willis's brother, and then they went to Montreal to shoot it. That's why it's in Canada.
Okay.
If they did a sequel to Battlefield Earth, I know that like it's based on the L. Ron Hubbard novel, but like, would it have been Battlefield Earth 2 or like Battlefield Mars? Like, where would they have gone from the first one?
Thinking, yeah.
Battlefield Toronto. They went from Battlefield Vancouver.
Man, Toronto Mars looks a lot like
Toronto. It gets more and more focused each time.
I love Toronto. Oh yeah, Franchise Pictures hates them.
I had one thought of something I didn't like in this movie, and for it being, I didn't know it was going to be a 3-hour movie. I was like, oh, a 2-hour movie, this seems a little long. Because there's like a point like 3/4 of the way through the movie that there's just like a big lull for no reason, and they just show crowd shots of like Canadians walking to a race. And I was like, this feels so out of place.
That happens 8 times in the film. There's so much
like
B-roll in it. There's so many shots of just
it's so much B-roll that I'm just like, we definitely didn't need this. Like, for all the stuff that you're telling me they cut out of it, like to leave all this, I'm like, oh man, this is weird.
Like before the final race, you do get all of those actual like real life race car drivers doing their real pre-race prep. But I didn't need a slow zoom in on a guy having a nap.
Yeah.
That's not making me like gearing me up for this race we're gonna watch. It's like, oh, there's a guy listening to headphones. Cool.
There's one B-roll sequence where I think it's 3 people in a row are eating hot dogs.
Yes. There is a lot of fan eating. And a churro, the girl eating the churro. Yeah.
One of the best.
That's it. There's a very suggestive.
One of the best, like it's not suggestive, but like one of the best shots in this movie is when they're in Japan, like seeing like the stadium food, but like the Japanese, like them making noodles, like frying. Yes. I'm like, this looks.
I got really hungry. Good. I agree.
Yeah. I'm like, just more of this, please.
That was you're right. I think that might be my favorite shot there. Mm-hmm. And then I also kind of like that he doesn't make the kart racing fancy, because if you've ever been to like one of these races and NASCAR races, they're a hodgepodge of every single thing on the planet. You have 250,000 people eating, and this is 01, so we don't have like acai bowl, food trucks yet. Just stuffing their face with food. Like he didn't. I think he tried to glamorize it, but it actually just made it seem not glamorous at all. And so I kind of appreciated that. That I'm like, hey, this looks like someplace I've been before. This looks like one of the fairs in Florida that I used to go to.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. But I think that the Japanese stuff, that shot was probably my favorite of the lot.
How do you think the gratuitous lady shots compared against the Fast and Furious franchise?
The dress flip Marilyn Monroe thing, I think, is even like too ambitious for Fast and the Furious. That I don't think that Fast and Furious has that much like risk taking.
If it happened in Fast and Furious, it would be like intentional. Like Dom was trying to do that.
Or do they do it in Tokyo Drift? Now that I think about it, Joey, is there a shot?
Dude, there's a wet T-shirt contest in the first movie.
Yeah, but I mean, like the specific like Marilyn Monroe dress flip, like that in that shot. I'm like, I don't think they would do that though.
Tokyo Drift has that accidental wind flip of that high school student on the car.
The weird crotch shot of what's her name? Yeah,
the high schooler.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a really weird question, because I had to watch all the Fast and Furious movies.
You had to, or you got to?
I got to. Yeah. And I was tasked with counting all the butt shots in each. So I had to frame and like, okay, basically what I set up was, if the AD was like, hey, point your butt towards the camera, Like not an incidental butt, more like, hey, walk this way so we can see your butt. Do you think the one in Fast 10 where the lady gets off the bike and walks is the most ambitious one ever? Like just we're talking like a dolly or like a steady cam following her in the red shorts. Do you think that's the most ambitious butt shot of the franchise?
No, the most ambitious butt shot of the franchise is Gal Gadot getting a handprint on her butt. That's
the pool shot,
narrative
that's the first thing that came to my
driving.
mind too. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. That's like that's a subplot.
There was I'm starting to forget this movie and I watched it last night, but there's something in here where they're trying to get do they need a handprint or they need fingerprints or something in this? And it felt like they were gonna do the same thing where I was like, did Fast Five
Driven?
Am I confusing this with something else?
You're still with like.
Were you watching National Treasure last night?
No, there was something I think in this
Bond
movie.
Film
Maybe there was
Mission Impossible.
I don't know.
What do y'all think about the brother in this movie?
Oh well,
I love Robert Sean
I love
Leonard.
him in House.
He's great. The Poet Society.
He's obnoxious in this
Dead
movie.
Poet Society. Good call. That's okay.
Yeah,
I've always.
It's
enjoyed
weird.
Robert Sean
So
Leonard.
he starts he's his brother, and then all of a sudden, at some point, he like starts using his first name or his last name. It sounds like a last name, and I was like, "Is this like his like calling his mom by her first name like his teenage rebellion against his brother?" But the brother plays an evil villain pretty good. There's your villain, Jay.
Right, but at the end of the film, they have like a nod to each other. Like, yeah, we're all cool, we're good.
yeah.
But like two scenes
good,
earlier, Robert Sean Leonard was trying to switch sides and go off with Til Schweiger, and now he's like, and then Estella Warren punched him in the face, and he has the like, I didn't hurt. That kind of call that a punch? Terrible, male ego comebacks, and then the film is all fine.
One of my favorite parts, now that you brought up Bo, is that in these kind of movies, one of like my favorite tropes is the like kind of Game of Thronesiness that they try to name everyone a very similar version of the same name. So we have like Bo and Mo, and then we had like Bly, and then you have Sylvester Stallone who's Sly. And so like I just keep mixing all these names up in my head, and I'm like, this is top tier. When you like have the names that almost start repeating, I'm like, this is gonna be a good movie.
See, I was thinking that the names in this film are terrible because you have like Memo Moreno and
Yes.
Bo Brandenburg, Sophia Simone.
The laziest name picking is always a good sign for me.
Joe Tanto, and I've mentioned DeMille Bly. It's like, these aren't real names. But then I thought about it. This was all written by a guy called Sylvester Stallone.
Yes.
A ridiculous name. So,
Yes,
of course, they're all going to be ridiculous names.
Is that his real name or is that a stage
That's
name?
his real name.
Oh, okay. Makes more sense.
Because I had the same thought. Like, his brother's called Frank. Why would he not be called Sylvester? No, his real name is Sylvester Gardenzio Stallone.
Oh,
So
that's a good name.
it's a great name.
I still like this movie.
I really like this movie. I'm just liking it more. The more we talk about it, the more I'm enjoying it.
I just love that they went into it with a 220-page script, and Stallone got $20 million for it. I mean, this is at the point in Stallone's career when he had made Ants, like
His best film.
Get Carter. He had made Copland was good, but then he was coming off of like Assassins. Daylight was cool, but he was by no means like a hot commodity at this time. But since this guy needed A-list talent so much, he funded his passion project that's 220 pages long. And Renny Harlin only took it because his movie fell through. Renny Harlin was supposed to direct Sound of Thunder for Ellie. Then he ducked out after this. He didn't do that. So it's just, I'm not a filmmaker, but I am smart enough not to go into a movie with the 220-page script with 4 different characters and do that. And I also want to say, I did some data, and
Okay.
I researched.
Here we go.
I researched Cold Stallone.
Cold Stallone?
Cold Stallone.
Okay.
Have you guys heard
No.
about this?
Tell me.
Okay, so let me get my numbers here. I got some good numbers. Okay, so when Stallone is in a movie and he's cold for a long period of time,
Okay.
they average $237 million domestic or
Are you
worldwide.
counting Demolition Man?
When he's in a hot picture, I
Because he's
counted that
fro-
because he's in
yeah,
an ice
thank
block
you.
forever.
Okay.
So when he's hot, when it's a hot Stallone driven Specialist,
Rambo,
movies like that, they only average 105 million.
Okay.
Wow, that's significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also have a much. They actually his Cold Stallone movies have a fresh tomato meter average because First Blood, he's in the mountains, he's cold. Cliffhanger, he's in the mountains, he's cold. Rocky 4, he's in the mountains, he's cold. Rocky, he's cold. Rocky 2, cold.
He's in a meat locker.
So when Stallone, the best Expendables 2 is the best of the franchise. They're in a mountain, they have jackets, they're cold.
Simon West.
So the yes, that's right. So the best Expendables movie, Cold Stallone. He's not cold in the other ones. So when you see a movie with Stallone and he's cold, it's statistically, critically, and financially much almost like not double for the critic size, but it's doubly for box office. It doubles.
Wait, are you also counting like Guardians 2 where he's on that like ice snow planet?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's on that ice planet, Cold Stallone.
Mm-hmm.
I was on that set that day. I had to get him a Red Bull. Random story. But yeah, so whenever Stallone is cold, his movies do better.
Is he like sugar-free?
I just want to let everyone know
Sugar-free
that.
or regular?
No, regular Red Bull. And they didn't have any on set, so I said yes to him. Then I had to stress out about finding him one.
I'm trying to think of a way of
which was
getting
not
Rocky
fun.
Road ice cream into this, but I can't do it, so I'm just gonna stop.
Like Rocky.
Because
Ooh,
he's cold, he's Rocky, he's ice cream. I don't know. There's something there, but it's not worth bothering with.
Like Tango and Cash. He's not cold. Like there's a scene in Cobra. So in Cobra, there's a scene where he's like, it's getting cold. And there's mountains in the background. But he's not cold yet.
Wait, is there a third category where he's neither hot nor cold? Like, are you kind of like the Rocky movie? Like, because like Rocky 4, he's cold, but he's also hot.
Well, anything with cold, like a lot of cold.
So cold was the designator. So like he's training in the snowy mountains or whatever. He's cold.
I don't have it in me to get the timestamps of all of them. I just kind of know.
But if he got cold, you put him in that category.
Yeah, and I especially know if there's mountains and cold, that's when the movies are really successful. First Blood, Cliffhanger, Rocky 4 is the highest grossing of the franchise.
Because it's the best
Cliffhanger was
movie.
one of his biggest films ever. So yeah, put him in the mountains. Expendables 2, highest grossing of the franchise. Put him in the mountains and make him cold. Your movies make a lot of cash. He's not in the mountains in these movies, and he's not cold.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Burt Reynolds in a wheelchair?
I do want to talk about Burt Reynolds in a wheelchair.
He's
please.
the slowest man in the fastest sport, guys.
It's been on my list to talk about for a while. I don't know how to transition to this.
When he looks at Sylvester Stallone, he goes, at my level, and he makes him crouch down to match him in the wheelchair. This was top tier cinema. This was like one of my favorite parts of the movie.
There was remember the Ironside? There was a rebooted Ironside drama like a decade ago that was canceled like midway through its first season. But in the like teaser for the season, because he's like a detective who's like in a wheelchair, and he basically says the same thing, just like, you see things a little different from down here, and he's like seeing clues in couches or something. Like he's just like, it's just like, come on, man. Like
was Steve Martin in it? Was this Brazos?
Ironside, because I think Ironside was it was the Raymond Burr show, which I know about from the Beastie Boys, but Blair Underwood from those insurance commercials, but also from like other things that he actually of note was Robert Ironside.
No,
that got canceled halfway through his first season.
Not Michael.
But
Wait, so they put him in a wheelchair, and he's like, "I see."
Oh, the whole show, like the premise of the show is he's a detective in a wheelchair that he solves crimes. But like they sold it like things look different from down here, and I only remember that because this is 2013. This is actually like literally a decade ago. Because my friend and I just loved that so much. We're just like, we didn't watch the show. We're just like, that's so dumb. Like that can't be the premise of your show. That like people like that like detectives who are able to walk like don't bend down to look in couches. Like he's just like seeing the world different from like that's the premise. I don't know.
What? It's like that show with the magician that they made. The guy's a magician, and they do it with Vinnie Jones, and he does magic, and then they do magic tricks to catch criminals.
I have to go watch this show. What is it? Tell me now.
I don't know. It's with the guy from Tenet who sells the art. Remember, he runs out of the room before it goes to the gas stuff, and he's in Oppenheimer with Casey
I'm just gonna find
Affleck.
this through Vinnie Jones.
And it's with the lady from the amazing
Spider-Man.
Iannucci show on the spaceship. That's
Channel 5.
Avenue 5.
Yeah, I love her in that show, and she has one of the most like nasally American accents I've ever heard in my life.
Okay,
but she's great. She's funny.
Vinnie Jones has done too many.
And they solve crimes. They solve crimes and they're magicians.
Deception.
Yes, deception.
A famed magician uses his skills of deception to assist the FBI in solving high-profile cases. Sold.
There's also a TV show called Jonathan Creek, which is all about that.
I love
too,
Jonathan
apparently.
Creek so much. We have the box set.
That was the first thing that came up when I googled magicians solving crimes TV show.
He lives in a windmill.
It went from Jonathan Creek to Deception.
If you haven't seen Jonathan Creek, it's excellent. It's a magician's assistant, so he like comes up with the tricks, and then every week he kind of gets involved in a. It's always a locked room mystery. There's always someone who died in a room that's locked. Every single week, there's 50 of these, and every single one is someone died in a locked room. And there's always a different way. Billy Zane's in this show. Okay, I need to go. I have to go. I'm sorry. Jack Davenport from Pirates of the Caribbean. Oh, yeah. This is my new favorite show.
Before you go, Jay, can we talk about also Sylvester Stallone humming for no real reason?
If you didn't assume that the Hummer was going to come back around at the end, I just counting down for when he started humming again.
When Jimmy Bly starts humming.
Yeah.
He's humming.
Do you hear it?
Okay, that's a scene that I liked was when he was picking up the coins. I liked that's something different.
The coin trick was dope. It was really cool, and also again like. This is a cool thing, and they shoot it, and the scenes where he's, like, flicking, like, when he comes around the corner and he's flicking the coins out once a lap, that seemed like the corniest way to shoot that for something that turns out to be so cool at the end. And I was like, okay, yeah, I like this seesaw of, like, laying into the corniest version of it, and then also trying to be very, very serious at the same time.
And Kip Pardue not understanding that wheels can rotate and the coin could be on a different part you can't see. Yeah, okay. This kid's green.
I don't think they knew what to do with Kip Pardue. I didn't mean to rhyme so well for that moment, but I don't think they knew what to do with him in this because he rarely ever says more than 2 sentences at a time. He does have some speeches, but he's mostly looking at computers. So I think he might have been a little overmatched, but when you're spending $20 million on Stallone, and then you got Gershon, then you probably paid Burt Reynolds $3 to $5 million, you're gonna have to get like a Kip Pardue in this movie. What'd y'all think about him in this film?
I completely agree with everything you just said.
Joe, you know who that is, right?
I just recognize his face. What do I know him from, Joey? Remember the Titans?
Oh,
it's
that
Sunshine.
was okay. Yeah, Sunshine.
There
It's
we
Sunshine.
go.
Yeah, that's why like
That's
2 minutes
the
in, I'm just like,
face.
oh,
Yes.
it's Sunshine and it's racing. Like this is Joe's gonna love.
Yeah,
this
but
movie.
without the long hair.
rules of attraction.
I had long hair blindness, Joey.
It's Ronnie Bass. Sunshine.
Yeah.
Oh,
He got in some trouble though in 2019. He got
what did
fined.
do? Drove it.
He flashed, or he I guess he invited an intimacy coordinator into his trailer, and he
no.
He
Yeah, and then
harassed
he got
the
fined.
intimacy
He has-
trainer.
Oh,
yeah.
It's
So
not
yeah,
the
but he got
smartest.
fined.
That's not the smartest
Yeah.
way to do this.
Let's play a game. Is this okay if I do
yeah,
this?
good touch, bad touch, and then goes too far.
I'll get off franchise pictures eventually, but I just found this
don't.
really
Stay.
funny quote by Ellie, where he goes, "Yeah, I pumped the budgets."
Yeah.
He's like, "How else was I going to get my slate financed?" And then the reporter said that Samaha almost said "piece of shoot slate financed," and so the reporter said he almost said POS. But I love it that he's like, "Yeah, I pumped the budgets." He's like, "That's what we all do."
did he not know he was being recorded?
And audited.
Was it just
This guy is still out there. He just started another production company in
that makes me even
2021.
happier.
Like,
oh man.
This guy
Is he making his own
He was
story?
married to Tia Carrera.
is he making his
He
own
was
film?
married to Tia Carrera. And like,
Wait, he married Tia Carrera?
yeah, back in the day, and he put her in a lot of his movies.
And
okay.
they weren't good.
And like, this guy is an absolute. And he only like I sent you guys. I sent Jay the article, but like he was flying high from one movie, the whole 9 yards, and then he fell from grace so fast, and then got sued for $100 million, and he got paid. So who knows how much money he made from his catering business? He owned a lot of gear that he would rent his own movies.
I have
Like he bought.
I have such a soft spot in my heart for like long-term habitual fraudsters like this. You know what I mean? Like for you to run it back like, you know, this is why I like Billy McFarland so much. I mentioned Fire Festival before, but like the idea that he's trying to start another Fire Festival and people are actually still giving him money makes me really happy.
Oh, it like sold out.
That's what
like,
I'm
it's not
saying.
Like the people are all
can't
about
happen again. It's just...
It can though. That's the whole point. That like
Oh,
Surely
100%
not.
can.
it's definitely gonna happen again.
I just think the thing he didn't plan on, like, so Battlefield Earth is it's a very bad film. I mean, it had next to no budget. He dumped him in a warehouse, an abandoned mall to shoot the movie. Like, he didn't even give him sound stages to make Battlefield Earth. Ballistic X or Sever, it barely makes sense. 3,000 Miles to Graceland. I mean, you know, Kurt Russell, and so you know how they got that movie made? He made a deal with Costner. He's like, you get final cut. And they also made a deal with Kurt Russell and said, you have final cut. So then they both made their own cuts of the movie, and Costner's cut won. And that's what was in theaters.
Mark, when we cover that eventually for Viva Pod Vegas, I want you to come on. I want you to talk about that, because after we do all of Elvis's movies, we're going to do movies with Elvis in them, or like that are about Elvis or whatever. And so I need a deep dive. I need a Mark Hoffmeyer deep dive on 3,000 Miles to Graceland, because I know nothing about that movie, and now I'm even more excited to see that movie.
But he dumped half their budget before they got to the location, so they had to change everything.
I love it.
But the thing about Renny is Renny had been making movies forever. He had made Prison, which we talked about. Like, he had made low budget films. So I think he probably made a decision to go around the world and get good B-roll, right? Get B-roll all around the world. He said he took smaller crews, some bigger crews. He got in the pits. He worked with the car. He worked with kart racing. I think Stallone was committed, since Stallone was producing, writing, and you know, like, Stallone was involved. And I think even though they probably lost a lot of their money, they didn't have as much money as they needed. I still think that's like Harlin. It cost him a lot of jobs, this movie. Like, this cost him more jobs than probably Cutthroat Island. But I don't think, if people put it into context how much money he had to spend, this isn't a gigantic budget bomb. The budget was not nearly as high as people think. And so I would say at the end of the day, this movie made 52 million worldwide. The budget was probably 45 after everything was said and done. And so I don't think he lost a lot of money on this. I just think when people see $92 million, they assume it's a dud. But there's just so much more to it. So, I mean, it was a bad idea for him to go into it. It was a bad idea for Sly to go into it. But Sly got 20 mil. Harlan probably got 10 mil. So, I mean, they just went and made a movie, hung out with kart racers, drove around fast cars, like, and then the movie tanked. But I don't know. I don't blame Harlan for this film. I really don't. I blame everything else and Harlan for
this was the real
I hope you get what I'm saying.
turning point in his career, though, because he just made his best film, the best film.
Yeah.
2 years prior to UC.
Yeah.
And then after this is I liked Mindhunters. We liked Mindhunters on this show. They kill people really hard in that film. But you have like Exorcist at the beginning, Covenant, Cleaner, 12. It's not a great slate of films after this. We've covered some of them. We're going to cover the rest. I can't say I'm looking forward to some of them.
I know that, like, not the premise of the podcast, but, like, as one of the premises of the podcast now is to cover his movies. And I was like, let me look up what movies he made, because, like, did he only do Deep Blue Sea? Because I was just like, not. I'm like, I know that he did Die Hard 2, which I personally really like, but I know that people don't necessarily love that. But I really like Die Hard 2. And I'm like, oh no, he made 3 or 4 movies that I love, but they all came before Driven, and there are 0 movies that I love since Driven, or like after Deep Blue Sea, right? So it's like, I haven't seen them. Like, I haven't seen all of his movies, but like Die Hard 2 I think is great. Nightmare on Elm Street 4 I think is great. Long Kiss Goodnight, which we covered on Too Fast, I think is great. Deep Blue Sea is obviously perfect because that's the whole premise of this.
Yep.
Like,
you could stay.
He made great stuff. It's just, we're on the wrong side of history right now. Like, the post Deep Blue Sea, it's maybe a little bit bleak.
Hey, he's coming back.
Yeah.
He's got The Strangers coming out this
40
year.
movies.
And he's got another shark film in development, so we're hopeful that he's had that mid-career lull to come up to an even greater third act of his career.
Is that Strangers anything to do with, like, The Strangers?
Yes.
The Strangers?
He's making a trilogy.
Sequel. Well, yeah, this is the first part of his trilogy, but that'll be parts 3, 4, and 5 of the Strangers franchise. I just picked up the first one. I've never seen it before. We're gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it soon.
Oh, the first Strangers is awesome.
The second one, Jay, we don't have to. I love the second one, but we can talk about the pool fight in the second one as a Deep Blue scene.
Okay, I'll put it on the list.
So we cover movies that aren't Deep Blue Sea adjacent totally, but we just talk about the water moments.
That's fun. That's a lot of fun. This one has a big water moment. There you go.
It does. Yeah, that is the most Deep Blue Sea adjacent scene in this film of the they're struggling to save the guy who's going to drown and then everything's going to explode. It's very Deep Blue Sea, that moment in the water. But actually, we haven't got your guys' thoughts on Deep Blue Sea. This is your first time on this show. It's kind of tradition that when new guests come on, they tell us. What do you guys think of this perfect film?
Joe?
I haven't seen Deep Blue Sea in forever, dude. So, yes, I'm sorry. I don't watch it scene by scene every time. I'm too busy watching Fast and the Furious scene by scene every time. So,
no worries. Well,
fair trade-off.
If you want to watch it again and refresh yourself and come back on and give us your thoughts,
I will. I 100% will.
But Joey, what about you? Have you got any Deep Blue Sea memories, or are you in the same boat?
I mean, we had, no offense to you, Jay, but we had Mark on 1999, the podcast, to talk about Deep Blue Sea over there. And I think it's really good. I think it's very fun. It knows exactly what it is. It's a blast to watch. I'm sure it was a blast to make. The titular song, even though it's not really the same name as the movie, is an all-time classic. Oh, yeah. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's exactly the right kind of movie to base an entire podcast and podcast franchise around.
Thank you. I mean, we have had guests on who don't like the film.
Oh,
so it's fine. Like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay to like, and people come on. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I get it. It's some people don't like horror, don't like monster movies. That's fine. But the fact that you do like it, Joey, perfect. I'm just going to assume that when Joe rewatches it will become his new favorite film.
I think so.
I mean, there's, it's a weird thing about the podcast, like 1999, the podcast, where it's like we're watching so many different kinds of movies. Like for the most, I mean, I try to mix things up a little bit on Too Fast, but for the most part, watching similar-ish kind of movies. And 1999 is like so scattered to the point where like it doesn't really always make sense or work or jive or whatever. But there are movies that I think, like Deep Blue Sea, where, cut in between prestige movies or blockbuster or like whatever it is, like work really well. And I also like, there's a movie Bats from that year that I really, really love. That's very, I think, spiritually similar about like killer bats, which I think is just like great. And it's nice to mix things up a little bit, because I think that like 1999 was obviously a very interesting time. A lot of good movies, a lot of weird movies, very, right before 9/11, right before the millennium, so on and so forth. But like Deep Blue Sea is just fun, man. Like I don't know if I would call it like good, but I really like it, and who cares? Like that's I mean it's not good, but it's perfect. You know what I mean?
Made some enemies today, sir. No, I've just added Bats to the ever-growing spreadsheet of films to cover on this show eventually, because we expanded to creature features.
Yeah, Jade, do you like the X-Files?
I have never seen an episode of the X-Files.
Oh, well, this basically feels like an extended version of the X-Files, like an extended episode of the X-Files, and I think Bats is a blast. Like, it's like 85 minutes long, and it's super cool, so.
This is why I like doing these Deep Blue Sea adjacent films that we're covering, because it also, a lot of them are similar. We get a lot of shark films or films set underwater, but occasionally we get films like Driven, which is nothing at all like Deep Blue Sea, or very little. And we've covered like Lifeboat, a very different film to Deep Blue Sea, but it's set on the water, so it counts. So like I'd like the variety that I can crowbar into it being similar to Deep Blue Sea in some way.
Well, at least y'all got to learn about franchise.
That was the best part of my day. Honestly, it really was.
Yeah.
This movie was great, but learning about franchise pictures is what set me over the top. Thank you.
When I saw Jay's score on Letterboxd, I was like, okay, I need to go franchise pictures on this.
I mean, I messaged you saying I hate this film. And then I watched it again with commentary.
So I was like, you know what?
And I watched all the deleted scenes that you told me to watch with Stallone's commentary, which we barely even touched on today.
But you know what the biggest bummer of this movie is? So Estella Warren hadn't acted much. So that scene where she's getting broken up with by Til Schweiger, Harlan actually made her cry on set by being mean to her.
To like get the
and
tears? Oh.
Yeah. And he was like really mean to her on set. And then he's like, I hated doing it. But later on, she came up to me and said that was great. I'm like, I don't know, Renny. That's I don't know. Don't be yelling at Canadian synchronized swimmers.
He admits to that himself in his own commentary. So I feel like it's maybe not that bad, or he's quite blasé about it. I don't know. But also that they like the scenes in Tokyo, they didn't get any permits. So that's all shot guerrilla style. Just like get out of the van, film stuff, get back in the van, let's go.
Very Tokyo Drift of them.
That's fun.
Yeah.
And Memo was a Chilean firefighter and pilot. Like the dude's a legit guy. Like I like Memo. The scene where he's like, take off my ring. Like I liked him in that. Like
that was a cute moment.
He popped in that moment.
That was a very cute moment. Like I love our friend. Like he played dumb enough to not have me stealing your ex-wife be like a source of tension between me and you, and when it really should be. But like if you saw this guy and like he starts acting like this, you'd be like, it's not his fault, it's her fault, don't worry about it, like
because that comes straight
he's
after
adorable. It's all good.
It comes straight after the terrible dialogue. Mark and I hate this kind of thing where Burt Reynolds is saying to Stallone, that ex-wife of yours, piece of work, divorces you and marries another driver. Like, everyone in that scene knows what's happening. But so we then meet Memo just after that, and you're expecting like he's going to be the male equivalent of Gina Gershon. He's going to be this terrible guy who's always lording over Stallone. But he's a nice guy. He's great. He's the friendliest guy in the film.
Yes.
He gets possibly paralyzed, unclear, in the explosion, never confirmed.
I would like to just imagine he breaks out of the hospital like The Rock does with his cast. He just like one day he just like stands up and it's just like, yep, I'm good.
He clenches his thighs and the whole hospital just crumbles around him.
Yeah.
Get it, Memo. And then that scene where the lady goes up to Til Schweiger and she's like, if I kiss every driver, and he doesn't let her. She's like one of the most popular German pop stars on the planet, and she was just there that day. So they gave her a scene. Know that. Yeah, so that whole bit came up on the day. I like that one. That shows some personality from him. Yeah. Jay, any other things that you learned from these scenes that you wanted to talk about? Stallone's such a smart guy.
Yes.
He has been making, like, he keeps coming back, right? Like 70s, he wins an Oscar. 80s, he had giant hits. 90s, giant hits. And then his career goes into down, like, isn't doing great, but then he pops up with Rocky Balboa and Rambo. And then he pops up with The Expendables. And then he's in Creed. Like, this is a guy who, I think he's just such a smart man. Like, I think he really understands characters. He knows how to write. And he's been staying relevant in the industry since the 70s. Like, I actually love hearing him talk. Like, he does I listened to an hour and a half of him talking about editing the Rocky IV director's cut. Like, I just love listening to Stallone talk and the way he talks about characters. So, I know, Jay, you had to listen to it, but I like getting into Stallone's headspace. Like, I really like learning from him.
Yeah, he's not a guy that I've really like valued or praised much in the past. He's got some films that I really like. Daylight, Demolition Man, two of my favorite films. But I've never really listened to him speaking as himself, and so listening to his commentary on those 50 minutes of deleted scenes, it was really like, hell, he knows. He's a smart guy. If you just take it as like, he wrote Driven, you're gonna come off at thinking maybe he's not a smart guy. But listening to him talk about it, there is a lot more going on. I thought I'd like to apologize to this guy. I know he's listening right now. For doubting him in the past. You're welcome to come on the show, sir. We'll talk about Daylight with you. I'd love to. But just he's not. He was very careful with how he spoke in that commentary, because he's not saying things against Renny Harlin for cutting him out of these scenes. He's praising everybody else.
Yeah.
He praises all the cast and everyone else who watched in the film. Never mentions Renny Harlin's name at all in that. The guy who cut him out of this film, essentially.
Yeah.
So I feel like there is a cut of this film where he is the star. It's the Joe Tanto story featuring Jimmy a little bit at the side. Especially Rocky V with cars. But better.
Well, that's what he wanted, right?
Know.
This was Rocky with kart cars.
Yeah. But no, that's all I wanted to talk about this one. Joey, any other thoughts on Driven?
Do we think that there's German Hawaiian tropic girls? Because that just doesn't feel appropriate. Like, I can't imagine German being...
I doubt there's any Hawaiian tropic girls.
Oh, that's true. But I was like, specifically in Germany, I was like, that doesn't seem like a place that's that sunny. So like, I don't get why they have these like tan chicks there. But and also, as someone who watches a lot of racing and F1 and stuff like that, One of my favorite parts of this movie is that the drivers have comms to each other while driving, and your ex-wife can just get on your comms as well if she wants. Like, there's not a designated person that's just talking to you while you're driving. You can just kind of just like, walkie-talkie into whoever, like, drop-in breakout room situation and just go and talk to whoever you want in the middle of the race.
Hey, Joe, you want tacos later? Get off the comms!
Do we know what Estella Warren's role was at the racetrack? Because like she's initially with Bo, but they break up, and then before she then like is friends with Jimmy. She's still there.
Jay, she explicitly says toward the end of the movie what her role is. She's there to get blamed if he loses.
Oh, how much does that pay well? The dental? Oh.
No, it's a horrible job to have. But he's like, it's your fault if I lose. She's like, that's what I'm here for. Like, it's almost a thing verbatim like that. I'm like, this is a terrible thing to talk about.
I'm Sophia. That's your problem.
I thought he was joking because he dumped her because he wanted to have like nothing in his way to get to the top.
And then he drives better.
But they never expressed that he drives better. Yeah, and then Joe only wants him to take her back because she's hanging out with the driver and he can't focus on himself.
Yep.
So they're sort of just bouncing poor Estella Warren.
And then when she's back with Bo at the end, Bo does not win that race.
Yeah, she's like a bad luck
and her
charm.
broad swimmer shoulders.
Hey Jay, so how Deep in Blue is it?
Okay, well first up, how is this film similar to Deep Blue Sea? I have a list. If my connection fails during this, I apologize. I'm just going to keep it in. Lots of communicating over the radio. They talk about a mountain catastrophe because Burt Reynolds says he wants someone who's been up to the mountain and fallen all the way down. So that kind of counted, I guess. There's a dance party. Sophia swims at one point, and it's synchronized swimming like the music video. Actually, she has her feet strapped in the air like the dead guy from Tentacles. Just that recently.
Yeah.
There's a helicopter, briefly. The antagonist, Bo, is a cold, emotionless monster in something, like a shark. Some of these are very tenuous. There are shots looking up from underwater. It just happens to be in a sink, but it still counts. There's an incoming storm at the German race, which I worked out because the German race for the German word is Wintersturm, which I translated to be winter storm. There are Formula One results on a newspaper. Just like in the second scene in Deep Blue Sea, when Dr. Susan McAllister is talking to Sam Jackson, there's a newspaper with a headline of like Hakkinen wins or something. Hakkinen, one of the few races not in this film, but there we are. In the rain, people spin out or fall over, as like happens in Deep Blue Sea. A vehicle explodes in water. They drag a man across the water to safety. They work together to save a guy. There's blurry point of view shots, which in this one from driving and in Deep Blue Sea are from the shark. And there's a Renny Harlin cameo. He plays the replacement driver in that scene where Kip Pardue has to hop up and down on his broken leg. Renny Harlin's in the background, and the replacement driver. So there are similarities between this one and Deep Blue Sea. But how deep and how blue is this film? As you two are less familiar with Deep Blue Sea, you may not remember that Deep Blue Sea is, of course, approximately 14.5 meters or 47.5 feet deep and 31% blue. So when I went through Deep Blue Sea, I kind of worked out how blue it was at every given point during the film and how deep the action was roughly taking place, and worked out that average. Do you think Driven is deeper and or bluer than Deep Blue Sea? A question for the ages.
No. Even with the rain and the blue cars, I don't think that the rain adds up enough to be deeper and bluer.
I agree.
You are correct. This is the only scenes that take place at any kind of depth are when Sophia is swimming, and even then it's like minus a little bit. And there are some scenes up in a plane. So the average depth is 3.17 meters up in the air, or 10.5 feet up in the air.
Even if the cars are low.
Blueness. Yeah.
Jay, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If it's a pool on the top of a hotel,
is that deep or high?
If they go underwater, I count it as depth. If they get out of the water, it counts as height.
I was thinking some of the tracks might be under sea level too. You know what I mean? So I was wondering if you factored in the tracks, like the sea level of the track.
Okay. I don't factor in sea level because I will lose my mind.
Okay, Fair.
I factor in. So it's basically if they're on land, I count it as a meter up in the air.
Fair.
That's just kind of my base rule. But if they go like up a mountain, like in Cliffhanger, then I factor that in. There's some scenes in 12 Rounds when they're on top of a building. I factor that in. When they're up in the stadium, when Stallone and Til Schweiger are having their conversation, I kind of factored that in. But if they're on the ground, it's +1. Otherwise, I'm here for all day doing this.
Makes
but
sense.
blueness, this works out being about 7.2% blue. It's not terribly. There's some shots of sky. There's some blue cars, blue uniforms, and things, but it's not very blue. But in terms of our ranking, that means that this is our 58th deepest, shallowest, 58th shallowest film, and also 58th bluest. It's tied up. It's on both. So this is deeper than Triangle, less deep than Muppet Treasure Island.
What?
Bluer than Deepwater and less blue than The Misfits, the Renny Harlin film, The Misfits. So not terribly deep, not terribly blue. Not a great showing.
Triangle and Muppets Treasure Island in the same sentence. I don't know if that's ever been... Like, this is right between those two films.
It's a beautiful list in terms of.
Wait,
I love your dedication.
which Deepwater did you guys do? Did you do the Ben Affleck Deepwater or a different one?
Yes, the Ben Affleck Anna de Armas one. It sounded like it was going to be more deep for Jason than it actually was.
No, I love that movie. That movie, I want the director's cut of that movie real bad. Man, oh man.
Yeah, that's a film. It's
a horny movie, man.
Horny snails. Horny snails.
All right, great. So where can we find you guys? We're the Joe and Joey. Wait, Joe and Joe too, or Joe and Joey.
Oh, you can do them.
You either call us both Joe or both Joey.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense to me, but that's just how you do it.
It's okay.
Okay. Where can we find y'all?
Joe, hit him with it.
You can find us pretty much everywhere at Too Fast, 2 Forever with the number 2. Twitter, Instagram, find the main website.
Go bigger, go broader. What do we do? Who are we? What do we do every Tuesday?
Oh, yeah. Every Tuesday we record a podcast. It's sometimes...
Don't follow our Twitter.
Yeah, sorry. It's about the Fast and the Furious movies where we watch them in a loop over and over and over again until we go insane. And
which hasn't happened yet,
hasn't
surprisingly.
happened yet. And then,
hasn't it?
We cut in some other movies, usually about cars, usually about people that are in the Fast and the Furious. Like, kind of stuff like this. Adjacent, tangential. So you can find us there every Tuesday. And at cageclub.me.
So I was on recently for Fast and Furious, the 4th one. And then since then, you've had a listener write in saying that that they thought the same way that I do. Have you sent this person help?
Oh.
Are they okay? I would assume that they listened to that and liked me for some reason, so they may have come here. So if you're out there, are you okay? Like twice.
Oh yeah, this was Wes writing in because you had an idea about new ways for us to watch the movies, and you said watch them alphabetically, and then you spent a long time trying to figure out how that would work, and then Wes spent even more time trying to figure out how that would work. Then I got all excited. I'm like, I'm going to read this because these are new rankings. I'm like, they're not new rankings. They're just him doing alphabet.
Sent us a whole email about alphabetization of the Fast and the Furious with a bunch of rules that were some used, some not, made up. Who knows? But yeah,
I hope they're
Great
okay.
show.
Oh, he's fine.
No, he knows he needs help with like that. So it's good. he's very open to it. So shout out to Wes.
Good. Wes, we love you.
I got a daughter. I have a daughter about to bust in. Mallory, come on in, girl.
Mallory has some plugs. She better be dressed like a shark.
Oh, a small one.
Look at her.
Hey, Mallory. You can't hear me. You haven't got a headphone in.
Mark, put a headphone in her ear.
I just waved at my camera that's turned off.
Say hi.
Hi, Mallory.
Hi, Mallory.
Say hi. Say hi, Mallory.
Hello.
Hi.
So happy.
So much hair. She just busted in the door. Makes me. Here, play with this. Right on that. Mallory will be a guest. She's almost 2, so she'll be on Too Fast.
We've never had a 2-year-old on Too Fast.
In about 16 years, she'll do a Too Fast 2.
No, I thought you were saying when she turns 2, we have a Too Fast 2 Mallory.
Ah.
Well, that's it. You should have her on before she turns 2, because then she's 1 to cover the first one. Then she turns 2, cover the second one, and do it once a year.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
A 1-year-old's thoughts on Fast and the Furious.
Vin.
What do you
Very good
consider
idea.
no knees
All right.
Denise to mean? 1-year-old.
She has no knees.
Food all over
Oh,
the place.
all right.
Yeah, that's every food, every meal. Right, Mark, do you have any plugs?
Yeah, movie Sons of Flicks, and I got some fun articles coming out. I don't want to jinx it yet, but I got 2 big articles coming out September, October. I got some fun. I have a fandom video about The Boys coming out and the biggest franchise, so go by the numbers. But yeah, I'll keep you updated when the articles are released.
Ooh. Nice. And the article link you sent me earlier to the New York Times didn't work when I tried to open it. So instead I found this great piece written by Mark Hoffman of Movies, Films and Flicks on franchise films. So I read that instead. So this you can go find that. And you can find my writing at lifeversusfilm.com. And that's about it. Follow this podcast on all social media at Deep Blue Sea Pod. Email us, deepblueseapod@gmail.com, if you have any recommendations for other films or scenes we could cover on any upcoming episode. As for today, as for Driven, thank you once again to our guests from Too Fast, Too Forever, Joey Lewandowski and Joe 2.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
I've been Jake Lewitt. That's Mark the Hummer Hoffmeyer. We'll Deep Blue. See you next week.